Hello, everyone. Josiah Anderson here. So, this is a special episode for Anderson TV. I'll be doing an interview with Samuel Hampton on look into the Libertarian Party. So, let's get to the interview. Okay, so this is a special interview for Anderson TV. We're going to look into the libertarian cause. I'm here with Samuel Hampton, who is from Yuma, Arizona. He's the secretary of the Yuma County Libertarian Party. Did I get that right?
Yes.
All right. So questions for this interview. So, what is libertarianism?
Well, libertarianism, our core belief is that if you are doing something, right, and let's say, for example, something that isn't involved with any force, like, for example, if I were to do something and there's no force involved and it's not affecting another individual liberty, then you should be able to do that without the government getting involved in your personal business. So as long as you're not committing force, fraud, coercion, or theft, or violence, there's no reason why me or the government or you should be getting involved in their personal business. So that is the core belief of libertarianism, and that's my selling point to libertarianism to people who don't know what it is.
All right. So, what makes the Libertarian Party different from Democrats and Republicans?
Well, first of all, we stick to our principles. We don't flip-flop in what we believe in. We've always stayed libertarian. So we haven't changed our party platform aggressively like the Democrats and Republicans. We're more fiscally conservative than the Republicans, and we're more socially liberal than the Democrats. So we believe freedom and individual liberty before the law itself. So, and when it comes to fiscal responsibility, we believe in completely slashing the federal budget. We believe taxation is theft. Essentially, when it comes to taxation is theft, of course, it's not moral to steal. The government is committing coercion. And how are they committing coercion? Because they are intimidating the public with tax prison, with asset forfeiture. They're stealing our profit. They're stealing our money, and that's immoral. And as again, we need to get rid of these government agencies that have numerous times violated our individual rights. And as again, most of the government can be basically slashed down for profit, for privatization.
Okay, so I was a Democrat once and I was independent. Now I'm a Republican. So, anyways, so libertarians believe in small government, right?
Very small government.
All right. So, what are some misconceptions about libertarians?
Well, I guess, let's see, that we're selfish. Some people think we're selfish because we believe in free market principles, because we are the capitalists, and I guess if you want to say, because most of us are entrepreneurs in a way. Most of us are. Sorry, but yeah, we're not selfish. We care about other people because let's just put, for example, tariffs. As the capitalist, we want to incentivize other people to compete in a free market, which is why we believe in getting rid of all tariffs completely, because we want other people to prosper too in the free market. So some people argue that us being free market capitalists makes us selfish, which we're not selfish.
Okay, so let's move on to some political topics. So, what are your thoughts on taxes? Because I know that I saw on your Instagram note that taxation is theft, and I strongly agree with that. It is indeed theft. So, can you expand on that?
Well, the entire goal when it comes to taxation for the Libertarian Party, we want to decrease taxation to the point where people can realize that taxation is not really as necessary anymore. But I'm a minarchist, so I believe in taxation to the point where it's voluntary in a sense that an individual can decide whether or not they want to spend their money on the government, which in my opinion would make the government more transparent on what they're doing, as you know, what they're doing in business, right? So I believe in voluntary taxation, which some people say is impossible. It kind of is right now, since we're in a society where coercion and government can raid your house because you're not paying taxes, which is asinine to me, very wrong. So yeah, we need to get to a point where we can prove taxation is not really necessary, and we're seeing that in states like New Hampshire, the Free State Project, and we're also seeing it in Argentina. They're actually showing that taxation, we can decrease taxation, and we can actually decrease inflation and spending. So these are things that we're showing to people, and it's a work in progress, but we are showing the people of America, particularly the Democrats and Republicans, well, more Republicans, that taxation is not a necessary thing in a society. I may sound like an anarchist, even though I'm a minarchist, but still, taxation is not super necessary for a functioning society.
Okay, so if only taxation were voluntary. Okay, so thoughts on the economy. I know you said you're free market capitalist, right?
Yes, sir.
So can you expand on thoughts on like how would a libertarian see the economy?
Well, first of all, we're really big on free trade. We're against socialism. We're against statism. We're against the entire idea that the government needs to be involved in the free market. But which, of course, the government still needs to be. I guess one could argue needs to be a little bit involved as in it needs to protect. It needs to enforce contracts and it needs to enforce the non-aggression principle, which is a principle against force, fraud, violence. Just are you familiar with the non-aggression principle? By any chance? Great. Awesome. Well, so we believe in getting rid of tariffs because I'll tell you why, as again, I'm pretty sure I just covered this earlier, but I want to get over it one more time. When you get rid of tariffs, you increase competition in the free market. I'll use healthcare as an example. We get imports for pharmaceutical drugs from Europe, but if we were to get rid of tariffs, we would actually decrease the price of the pharmaceutical drugs coming from Europe. But here's the thing: the American companies that produce higher quality pharmaceutical drugs, they would have to decrease their prices to compete with the European companies, which I think is an incentive, free market incentive, right, for these other companies so they can gain the consumer. And the thing is, though, and I'll expand on this. We shouldn't be subsidizing anybody too, because that is also a form of socialism and cronyism, which is not real capitalism. It's not real. It's fake. It's asinine that we even get involved in these kind of words. We call it capitalism. It's not. But we need to end subsidies. We need to end tariffs, and we need to let the individual choose the fate of the free market. And we also need to get rid of the minimum wage. Some people say that's too radical. I would argue it is pretty radical, but it's a good form of radical. The reason why we need to get rid of the minimum wage is because of one thing: the free market needs to decide the pay for the workers. And secondly, the minimum wage actually makes small businesses harder to stay in business. And it actually decreases jobs, which we need more jobs, which of course is decided by the fate of the marketplace, which is a good thing in a sense.
Okay, so per what you said about minimum wage, of course, I remember having a conversation with my family about
Mhm.
minimum wage. Of course, they believe in increase in minimum wage. I disagree with that. I mean, minimum wage is not meant to be livable. I mean, why in the world would you want to increase the minimum wage? Of course, um, you're literally getting on the fire of layoffs, putting that company out of business by raising the minimum wage. Of course, this is America. You can get another job. Just don't work at a minimum wage job
Yeah,
for the rest of your life. Just get another
exactly.
job.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on free speech?
Sorry, you cut out.
Um, what are your thoughts on free speech?
Free speech, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we believe. Well, I actually have a little. I thought you were going to say this. This was a sticker I got at LibertyCon. It says free expression, no exceptions. And right there, kind of hard to see right there. So we believe in free speech to the fullest extent. If you want to say something, you should be able to say it without the government breaking down your door, arresting you for hate speech. Even though there are hate and evil people who say evil things, we shouldn't violate their individual rights to free speech. The best way we can combat hate, which is not, of course, restricting their speech, we should treat it as a people problem and try to bring to like a level ground. You know, I met Daryl Davis, a musician who met with Klan members, and he actually converted them to the light, which is Christ. He brought them to a Christ-like. I guess you can say Christ-like, because hate is not Christ-like. I'm a Christian, so I'm gonna say Christ-like. So, we need people like him to help bring everybody together to stop hate. We don't need the government to break down doors and intimidate the people into a certain belief system that they don't even want to believe in. We need to come together as a people. That's how I see it. No government involvement needed.
So yeah, I heard of what Kanye West, of course, said on X was very abhorrent. Some people say that, okay, Kanye West should be banned off X, but I disagree with that. I mean, it may sound, yeah, abhorrent, but just let him keep expressing himself. I mean, let him express himself freely. And also Vince Everett Ellison, who I admire a lot, of course, says that, well, freedom comes from God, not government. So don't let government change, make some laws so that you probably sit the same lunch counter. Well, as a black man, the white man, of course, can't sit in the same lunch counter. Of course, you change the hearts of people. You change hearts of people. I mean, if you use government, you're using a gun law.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you have to change people's hearts. I mean, just don't let the government, I mean, come after them, which is why that some things about the civil rights movement that I have some questions about, which I'm going to talk about in a future episode. Maybe next Saturday, I'm going to talk about that. So, anyways, now back to these questions. What is the libertarian thought on education?
Well, we believe in abolishing the Federal Department of Education, which has actually caused education to go downhill, not uphill. Jimmy Carter, you're a terrible president. Sorry, good guy, bad president. I don't know why you got elected. But anyways, so yes, we need to increase competition in the school system and in the education system. We need to bring the power to the people, not the government. We need to get rid of the zip code laws that make you, let's say, for example, you're in a certain zip code, you want to go to this certain school. That is wrong. We need to increase competition. We need to incentivize these schools to do better, to actually compete, to gain more students. Because honestly, if a school's doing bad, they should fail. The good schools should succeed. That is kind of similar to the free market almost, which I adore completely if it wasn't obvious. But yeah. We need to increase competition in education, abolish the Department of Education, and bring the power to the people, not the federal government.
Yeah, I actually addressed this in my book, Revelations about Democratic Party. Of course, let me just say, whatever chapters are the longest, those are the issues I'm very passionate about. Education is one of those things. I'm a substitute teacher, became one August 2024 for the same school system that I just graduated from. So, but I went to middle school, of course. Yeah, it was a terrible middle school. It was a terrible time there. In seventh grade, of course, they placed me in a special needs class. They placed me in a special needs class, and without my consent, probably without my grandmother's consent, probably because the schools thought that I had disabilities, so they thought I would be perfect in there, but no, I was actually doing better than any of those students in there. So anyways, but it's a good thing that I took regular courses at the second part of the school year. But my middle school has a reputation for disruptive students, making teachers quit their jobs. In sixth grade, one teacher quit. In eighth grade, two teachers quit. And probably more that I'll even know about. So I agree with school choice. I absolutely agree with that, and dismantle Department of Education. I agree with that. And let there be competition. I mean, if that school is terrible, close it down. Just close it down. I mean, throwing money at a problem is, like I always say, putting a small Band-Aid on a big bear bite, which means it's not solving the problem. It's making it worse. So, which is why education is one of the things I'm very passionate about, right next to politics. So, what is the libertarian thought on foreign policy?
Well, we are very non-interventionist. We believe that we shouldn't be the police state. We also believe we shouldn't be getting involved in wars in general, as long as we're like, for example, let's use the Bush wars. Those wars were actually started based off of manipulated CIA data. Those wars were done for profit for the military-industrial complex, which is responsible for the mass murdering of innocent people, which is wrong. These people, Boeing, Raytheon, all these other companies that create these vehicles, planes, etc., that are used for these mass murders, they should be making other things. You don't need to make a tank. You don't need to make all these things. We already have so much. We have such an influx of equipment. Why do we need to make more? You can make other things other than devices and tools that are used for the mass murders of innocent individuals. Secondly, we need to stop bombing people. That's something that Trump did. That's something that Obama did, and that stuff needs to end. And I'm worried that Trump will do it again. And I think we could be a more peaceful people if we actually got involved in free trade with other people. When people are trading and engaging in a free market, I think, in my opinion, everybody's happy, cheerful, we're all making money, we're all profiting off of something. I think that's a deterrent for war and for conflict. All these tariffs, for example, cause tension throughout the world. They do not make peace. If we engage in a free market, we have peace. But when we cause tension throughout the world, we cause a ruckus, as I say, with other countries. We cause drama. That causes the chances of a war, of actual problems that involve the deaths of innocent people and American troops, possibly fighting a war that we shouldn't be involved in, which we are trying to avoid as much as possible. Which is why the Libertarian Party has an initiative to defend the National Guard from being deployed overseas, called Defend the Guard. Very important thing. We are literally raging against the war machine. If you kind of got the idea off of that name, raging against the machine, you know. But yeah, so we are very not interventionists in a sense that we don't want war. We want to avoid war, but there's one thing we do believe in: self-defense. That's why we have a porcupine as our logo. Because if you mess with a porcupine, you're gonna get hit back, and that's not fun. You do not want to mess with the porcupine. So let's say, for example, we had a libertarian as president and we were attacked. You would expect that libertarian president to make sure that we defend ourselves as a country. So that's our policy on foreign, like, just basically foreign stuff.
Okay, so I remember watching several movies about, like, the Bush administration, and Dick Cheney as well, I believe, is a war criminal, by the way. So
Yes.
W was one of them. Vice was another one that I watched. So I thought Bush administration terrible, Dick Cheney was terrible, and of course, and also John Bolton, of course, just a neocon warmonger with the white mustache.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so good thing that John Bolton isn't anywhere in the Trump administration. But yeah, I'm worried, of course, about all these foreign wars, and I strongly agree with self-defense and should not be going into any more no-win wars. Okay, so there's a miscellaneous. question. So who was the most libertarian president? I'll give you a hint. They're both Republicans, but I'll let you decide. Calvin Coolidge or Ronald Reagan? Who was the most libertarian president?
I don't know about Calvin, but I do know about Reagan though. I know about Reagan very much. He was not libertarian whatsoever. He banned machine guns. He may have had a pretty lenient tax policy similar to ours, but here's the thing: he believed in subsidies. He was not a free market capitalist like libertarians are. He was more of a socialist who was trying to pretend to be the fiscal. He was trying to pretend to be the fiscal conservative as a capitalist, like most Republicans right now who are in leadership are lying. But I honestly I would have to go with neither right now because I don't I don't know about Calvin Coolidge. I don't really know about his presidency. I would have to do research.
Well, all I know that Calvin Coolidge, of course, believed in free markets. I mean, that's basically all I know. I remember that he said that he wants the people to work less for the government and more for themselves. I mean, that's the
Very
quote that I
libertarian.
best from him. But all I know that the president after him, Herbert Hoover, of course, caused the Great Depression, by the way. But I know that there has to be a lot of discussion regarding both Democrat and the Republican parties as well. There has to be a lot of discussion between them because I left the Democratic Party because they have gone way too far on the left. They're out of touch, unrealistic. But I still have a lot of questions about the Republican Party as well, since I'm leaning towards them. I watch a lot of documentaries about the Republican Party, most definitely about Black conservatives, by the way. In fact, about identity politics, by the way. I don't think that should hyphenate. Don't think that we should hyphenate like African American or Indian American or something like that. We're all Americans. That's who you are. And diversity is our strength. No, unity is. I mean, why would you want to create more reasons to divide us? And I know that it is Black History Month, and some people want to celebrate all the people that made contributions to America, well, including Martin Luther King Jr., who I just learned wasn't a good guy, wasn't a good guy at all. But people can think that for themselves. I mean, people have different thoughts about Martin Luther King as well as others. And probably about what you said about free markets. You know, are you familiar with supply side economics?
Sorry.
Are you familiar with supply side economics?
Supply side economics.
Yeah.
I'm more into Austrian economics, so I'm a little bit of an echo chamber of Austrian economics. So you would have to hit me a little bit.
Well, yeah, I will look into that. I took a Hillsdale online course about supply side economics. I learned about the Laffer curve and also how Art Laffer attributed to Reaganomics, which you already gave your thoughts on. And I also took another course there on communism, Marxism, and socialism, which I find very bad ideologies, and that it is not being talked about. The left refuses to acknowledge that they're actually leaning towards communist ideology. I mean, they say, oh, that's not real socialism. That's not real communism. Well, I looked into the Communist Party of the USA's website. Seems like their beliefs beg to differ. And also you have members of the Democratic Socialists of America showing up outside the Democratic National Convention last year. So, which is why that I left the Democratic Party and headed towards the Republican Party. But now that I know some things about libertarianism, which are very good, by the way, I mean, if only that people were not forced to pay their taxes. I mean, if only that happened. I mean, shouldn't be forced to do that. I mean, just make it voluntary. Okay, so now I have to ask you, of course, how long that you've been part of the Yuma County Libertarian Party? How long have you been part of it?
Well, I've been part of it for about, let's see, like 4 months, at least 4 months. I'm actually new to politics, actually, believe it or not. I've always been libertarian, actually. But I really discovered it actually last year when I found Chase Oliver, our 2024 nominee for president. I did know about libertarianism. I didn't really look too much into it. But when Chase Oliver spoke out about libertarianism, it really hit me a little bit and really made me think, this is what I believe in, don't I? This is the core values that I would fight for. So then I did more research. I read books. I actually have I wonder if I put it. Oh, it's in my one of my closet things. I wish I could get it out right now. But yeah. Hold on. Sorry. Anyways, where was I? I was on Chase. Bring me to the LP. Right. Okay. Yeah. So he brought me to libertarianism, and I did reading on libertarianism and economic theory, and it really brought me to libertarianism. And then I got involved with the Yuma County Libertarian Party. The party is in itself a little bit, I guess, in a very bad state right now. We are honestly, I would say we are capable of winning a political office in our county. We sadly had a bad officer election. We couldn't elect any officers, so as of now, we are, I guess, the status of being inactive till further notice, which will make me chair really soon, actually. But I've been in the Yuma County Libertarian Party for about 3 months so far, or 4. I haven't been keeping track, honestly, but it's been a while. And I have no regrets, and I'm happy to be involved as much as I can in any capacity. I was also a volunteer for Chase Oliver's campaign, and I actually have a button right here from his campaign right there. Yeah. But yeah, I've been involved in the party for a while. Yeah, and matter of fact, I'm trying to work with the national party in any way I can. I'm making contacts, trying to work my way up there so I can work with them as much as I can. But yeah, 4 months, about 4 months.
Okay. Okay, so I know that, okay, Chase Oliver ran in the 2024 presidential election, right?
Yes.
Chase Oliver? Okay, so there was a question that has been eating at me for about years now. Of course, I was thinking about third parties. I mean, even though I was Democrat, even though I was independent, I was thinking about third parties. I mean, why don't they get a lot of attention? So third parties, they usually don't win elections. They don't, probably because both Democrat and Republican Party, of course, they're in the mainstream. They're way up there. They're in the mainstream. So, but since I'm hearing a lot about the libertarian cause, that I don't see why that it has gone mainstream. I mean, there's like one Republican who happens to be libertarian, by the way. Haven't heard of Thomas Massey?
Yeah, I'm a big
Massey?
fan of those. Yeah, I'm a really big fan of those.
Yeah, so I saw his interview on Tucker Carlson. Of course, yeah, he pretty much has the same beliefs that probably most libertarians. He's against sending foreign aid to other countries. Then he talked about APAC, which is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, by the way. So I was a bit concerned about APAC, a bit concerned about that. I mean, I think that it should be looked into. I mean, let me just say that I do support Israel, but APAC should be looked into because I don't think that any of our elected officials should be bought off. Should be bought off by a certain organization just so they would vote a certain way. I mean, that should be illegal. I mean, that should be illegal. So there was also a lot of talks about, okay, APAC should be foreign agents. Then other people would say that, okay, APAC was made here in America, so why should it be a foreign agent? Well, because that they correspond with Israel, a foreign country, which has absolutely nothing to do with the United States. So I think that APAC should be looked into. I mean, I support Israel, but APAC should be looked into. But I also believe that politicians should not be bought off by certain organizations or certain countries. I don't believe that. It should be looked into. So since that Thomas Massey voiced out against that, I'm convinced that it should be absolutely looked into. So, yeah. All right, so.
But may I just say something regarding the Libertarian Party not going mainstream? There is a protected duopoly in our country. The Republicans and Democrats, they don't need to get signatures to be on the ballot. The third parties, they actually have to get ballot signatures to even be on the ballot. We have to actually work our butts off to even be on the ballot in states and counties and vice versa. So, one of the things we can do to combat this is to, first of all, get rid of the biasness in redistricting, bring RCV, ranked choice voting, abolish the electoral college. Because honestly, I believe some people say it's a little too much, abolish it. But the issue with the electoral college is that in my opinion, it kind of doesn't really generalize what the American people want. I mean, Trump won the electoral college. The American people wanted Trump. If the majority wants somebody, the majority should get what they want. I believe that the electoral college in itself is just corrupt, old, needs to be renewed, and we need to get a new system in place. And I believe that's the change we need as a country to move forward in the future. Also, when it comes to a reinforced duopoly, you don't see libertarians or Green Party members or other third parties showing up on the debate stage on CNN or MSNBC or Fox, because the media is also in on this too. They know that they can spread hate, biasness, and continue this message that there's no other options who are viable. Well, here's the thing. There are viable options. Honest people who aren't here to take money from Israel. There are people who actually want to fight for the American people, to bring actual good policies that benefit the people, not them and their pockets and their line of lobbyists who work for themselves and not the people, and all they're there for is profit. So we need to bring a good monopoly of parties, not a bad monopoly of parties, which is the two-party system, which is corrupt, flawed, and needs to be removed. We need to break a multiple party system where people can actually compete. We don't need these ballot act initiatives. If you want to be on the ballot, if you want to represent your party, you should be able to. We need to loosen these regulations on third parties. And the thing is, in order to be considered a major party, you have to have 5% of the national vote. We have came so close as a party to do it, but we couldn't, sadly. But we're getting there. But yeah. There's a reinforced duopoly, and it's done by the government and the media.
Yeah, I heard that. Well, when RFK Jr. was running as an independent, of course, they would not let him in the debate between Trump and Biden when he was running, or was it Biden or was it Harris? I think it was Biden because um, I believe that Biden was forced out in about June or July. So then I think on News Nation, I think that they let RFK debate, I think was virtually on a separate show for like, it was called A Third Opinion. So I think that third parties should be able to debate. And about the Electoral College, I remember writing an essay for a scholarship contest when I was a senior in high school about why that the Electoral College is irrelevant. So, anyways, why should 538 nobodies decide who gets to be president? So I didn't get an email back. I didn't get a reply back from that essay. Well, it's history now, but I still remember what was there. So I may be part of a different party, but I say let third parties have a say their opinion. Let them participate in the debate. And I think with Joe Rogan, he said about debates, of course, he doesn't like these debates where that they're like, okay, moderators, that there are moderators there. Of course, a debate would be like put the two people in the room, of course, just have a conversation. To have a conversation, then a spirited debate as well. I mean, so he's practically saying, let's have a debate, just do not let the moderators in. So, or could not be two people, it could be like three, or just turn to an entire meeting. So just let the third parties in. Let them in. I mean, it can't be just two of them. I mean, which is why that people are not watching the mainstream media anymore. Of course, they're moving on to independent sources like Tucker Carlson, like Newsmax, like Steve Bannon's War Room, like InfoWars, Candace Owens, and them. They're moving on to more independent sources. They're no longer watching the mainstream media anymore because they know how much they've been lied to. And that I was one of them for 4 years. And mostly lied to. So pretty sure there are going to be some things in this Trump administration that I might like. There are some things that I won't like. There are some things that libertarians might like, some that might not like. In fact, let me ask you, what do you think that of Doge doing so far? What do you think of Elon Musk and Doge?
So, me personally, I have mixed feelings about Doge. What I do know is one thing: Trump loves loyalists, and I know a second thing: Doge is mainly going to be used to install loyalists into government, particularly the bureaucrats. So the thing we want to avoid is we want to avoid replacing workers. We want to decrease the amount of spending in government, and you can do that by getting rid of government workers who are not needed for the government whatsoever. So what I'm worried about is the Trump administration bringing more Trump loyalists to power, which we do not need, of course. We need to bring a transparent government that is not biased, because when there's loyalists in power, that's the next step to tyranny. We don't need tyranny. And we need people who will stand up for the Constitution, not a man in power who sits at the desk. We need someone who's loyal to the Constitution, not a politician. I will say this though. I do support that Doge is showing people how much of I guess, a crapshoot the government is. And it's kind of waking up some Democrats too, which I'm kind of happy about. But it's also making some Democrats pretend to be libertarian too. So that's also interesting to me. So yeah, mixed feelings about Doge. I hope Doge mainly focuses on decreasing government spending instead of replacing workers with loyalists, which is something we don't want.
So yeah, I know that Republicans in Congress, they're negotiating some sort of budget proposal. I think it was like $4 trillion in codifying those cuts that Doge is doing, and spending cuts like $2 trillion from that. But they want to raise the debt ceiling by $4 trillion. Now that's a problem because have we gone through this before? So I think it was like in December that, okay, the government's going to shut down. If we don't raise the debt ceiling, then the government is going to shut down. I was in favor of letting the government shut down. I mean, just let it shut down.
I was in it too. I was literally cheering for the government shutdown.
Yeah. Yeah, so do not need to raise the debt ceiling. I have no idea why there are some people sitting on single issue bills instead passing all these spending bills, single issue bills like helping people over there in North Carolina or something like that. Which I don't think that bill was probably going to help anyone in North Carolina. I don't think it was. Probably it's another setup or something. So probably goes to show that you rely on government to help you with anything. It's not going to go well. You're absolutely screwed. Which is why that freedom comes from God, not from government. So I disagree with raising the debt ceiling. Of course, might as well just go ahead and shut government down. I mean, Democrats said that they want to shut the government down in protest of, well, Trump's policies. Well, go ahead. That's what we want. I mean, go ahead. I mean, since December, that is what we've been wanting. So, I mean, a lot of federal workers don't even show up anyways. They didn't even show up anyways. I mean, that's according to Doge. They didn't even show up. I mean, mostly at home virtual and stuff of that matter. And of course, there's all kinds of misinformation out there about what happens in a government shutdown. I mean, sure, some federal landmarks are closed, but also it does not affect anyone's like Social Security benefits and Medicaid. It does not affect any of that. I don't know why that the media would want to depict it as that. And they want to depict Elon Musk as gutting up the government. I mean, just finding government waste. That's exactly what he's trying to do. That's what they're trying to do, and also making fun of the age of people that are working for Doge. They're like 18, 19, 20 years old. How old were the founding fathers? James Monroe was 18. Aaron Burr was 20. Thomas Jefferson was 33 when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, I believe. I mean, all the founding fathers were young. I mean, you think just because they wore those wigs, of course, make them look old? No. They were actually pretty young. I mean, I don't think that probably age matters. I mean, it's just about the genius of these people looking for how much of our tax money has been spent in stupid programs going overseas. So I heard a lot of people say that as soon as they find all this government waste or anything like that, they demand a big tax refund. I mean, a hefty tax refund. They want their money back. I mean, because if they knew that their money was going into that, then what is the whole point of paying taxes anyway? What is the whole point of it? It should just be voluntary, like you said. And I absolutely agree with that. Don't break into my house with a gun and force me to pay taxes. I'm taxed on what I earn, tax what I spend, even tax when I probably die one day. It's insane. It is insane. So I agree that it should be voluntary. So I think that there should be a conversation with Democrats and Republicans. Well, I already know that can't talk with Democrats anymore, but I would talk to Republicans. I would do that about what exactly are we doing here? What exactly are we trying to do here? Are you trying to get yourself into a foreign war? Are you trying to suppress someone's speech because you disagree with it, you think is abhorrent? Sure, someone said maybe racist, anti-Semitic, or abhorrent, but you don't have to ban them. You don't have to. You can't do that. Would you rather be like what Twitter was before Elon Musk took over? Banning so-called misinformation about COVID. What are your thoughts about what has been found lately about COVID?
Well, I have some pretty good feelings about this. First of all, I think COVID was mishandled in many ways. The federal government used COVID, and state governments too use COVID as an excuse to trample on an individual's freedom, on their liberty, which I found very, very wrong and evil. Hold on. Sorry. Sorry about that. Issues. Anyways. Woo! Anyways, yeah. You're editing this, right? Editing it some of the gaps out. Okay, you could. We want to make sure this looks good for both of us. All right.
Okay.
Anyways. Yeah. So let me re-answer the question real quick. Because all right. So essentially, what we want sorry. So the government, the state, federal government use multiple state governments. They use COVID as an excuse to trample on our individual rights. Like for example, they restricted access. They locked down their states. Cities locked down their cities, which was very wrong. They basically destroyed small business, and they even destroyed big business too a little bit. So they basically disrupted the economy, which was totally wrong, immoral. And we shouldn't be disrupting a free market, which is, as again, something I believe we shouldn't be disrupting any marketplaces in general. But also, I believe COVID was made in a lab. That's my personal opinion. I know some people disagree. I'm assuming you agree it was also made in a lab too. I'm assuming.
Yeah, most definitely. I watched a documentary about this called "Thank You, Dr. Fauci." So there is evidence indeed that it was made in a lab, and I definitely agree that COVID was used as a way to implement global martial law, at least that's how Alex Jones put it, global martial law. Practically lockdowns, that's what usually martial law is. Being locked down in your home like that, they knew that it wasn't scientifically proven. That's not scientifically proven. It's not. And also the vaccine as well. All kinds of misinformation about so-called misinformation on like vaccine cause side effects. You know, Nancy Mace, South Carolina, I believe, of course, got a sustained injury from one of those vaccines, Moderna one. So, and there are also some small cases of myocarditis, I believe, when it comes to taking that COVID vaccine. So I don't know why that a lot of people were probably either forced to take that vaccine. If you don't take this vaccine, you're not able to work anymore. You're not able to join the military. That is absolutely trampling on people's freedoms right there.
May I say something regarding work? If we're talking about private companies making, like for example, they're deciding that workers should be getting vaccinated, I think that is honestly okay. I'm not saying, I disagree with the idea of people being forced to be vaccinated, but that only comes to when it's the government doing it. When it's a private company telling you if you're not vaccinated, you're not going to work at our company no more. I think that's just the company engaging with its property rights as a private entity deciding the standards for its personnel who work there at the company, which is okay.
Well, yeah, but the thing about the COVID vaccine, of course, I believe is experimental. I mean, there's no way that anyone would come up with a vaccine in like months. I mean, there was something in that documentary I also watched, of course, they were working on one in 2019 while they were working on the virus. So money came from gain of function research that probably came from US taxpayers. The money came from US taxpayers and gain of function research to the NIH and then this lab in Wuhan, China, which created COVID. So in December, when the government was about to shut down, there was gain of function research in that bigger pork barrel bill that was like 1,000 pages long. But thanks to Elon Musk and everyone's common sense, the bill was reduced to 116 pages, not the 1,000, because if there were more gain of function research into it, 2025 would be seeing another pandemic. I mean, I don't know. We just got into 2025. I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it or anything. So, so it's a good thing that pork barrel bill did not pass, but at least the 116 smaller bill. And Democrats want to lie by saying that it was research for like cancer research. Well, no, it wasn't. I mean, knew what was in it. It was gain of function research. It was probably the same gain of function research that caused COVID, that might cause a new virus. I mean, have to hold these people accountable. I mean, Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, all of them accountable. I mean, crimes against humanity for causing a global virus that crippled economies. I mean, locked people out of their homes. And yeah, well, governments, the World Health Organization with all these recommendations, which is a corrupt organization, by the way. I mean, sorry. I mean, I'm against globalism. I'm against that. Are you familiar with Agenda 2030?
I'm pretty sure that is a globalist environmental agenda, I think. Or something. It has some sort of environmental stuff going on with that. Agenda 2030, you said?
Yeah.
I've heard of it, but I'm more focused domestically on what's going on in the United States and in my county since I'm in local politics. I try to avoid certain things like Agenda 2030 because honestly, I'm more focused on the people of Yuma, Arizona than other countries right now. So, can Can you tell me what that is, please?
Oh, Agenda 2030, they would say that it is a plan for, okay, sustainability, environmentally conscious, but no, really it is a plan for a one world government.
Mm-hmm.
It is a one world government plan.
Right.
Well, my grandmother, who is liberal, by the way, of course, she told me about this years ago. She didn't say it was Agenda 2030, but she says that there could be possibility that a one world government could be on the horizon. And it is through Agenda 2030 or whatever that the World Economic Forum or the UN would actually come up with. In fact, I think the UN is, what do you think about the UN? What do you think about the UN?
Well, first of all, I think we need to get out of the UN as much as we can. The UN is literally the one step to world government. Matter of fact, the United Nations is actually working with Mexico to come to the United States and take our guns away, which we need to stop from happening in the first place. And I heard about that due to a gun organization. I can't remember its name. I would have to figure it out later, but very good organization. Maybe you can link them in the bottom of the video because they really stand for our rights. They do not compromise like the NRA does. So the United Nations is the demigod of a one world government. Their intentions are to bring everybody together so they can form a one world government. The United Nations is also very socialist. They don't believe in capitalism. They believe in socialism, and that's the step to communism. We don't want communism, and especially a one world government that's communist. We don't want that. I mean, have we seen 1984? I mean, like, come on, guys, let's do good here. uh, yeah, I'm against the United Nations. We need to get out of the United Nations. And if a libertarian was president, I would expect him to get us out of the United Nations, like immediately, if we could.
Yeah. Yeah, because the UN is actually a failed experiment. I mean, kind of like Frankenstein, by the way. If it gets us to one world government, then it's Frankenstein. I mean, the UN is practically Frankenstein. Kind of like Woodrow Wilson. He created the League of Nations, which failed. You know, Woodrow Wilson, of course, he was a terrible president. So I don't remember the name of it, but it was The Birth of a Nation. What was called Birth of a Nation.
Yes.
Was called. That movie involving the Ku Klux Klan, of course, he played it at the White House Theater. And of course, he said that the movie means a lot about history or something. That's at least what he said about that. Same person that created the League of Nations, which failed. The United Nations is also another failed experiment as well. So anyways, why should the United Nations or the International Criminal Court or any other world globalist organization dictate what a country does? I mean, why? I mean, just so that you want your socialist or communist agenda into that country, so that you want to take over that country under an iron fist. So I say that as a failed experiment, and I agree that, well, President Trump should take us out of the United Nations, take us out of NATO as well. I mean, I began looking into NATO. It's a corrupt organization, and they're the ones that waged a war with Russia by peckering Ukraine into that war with Russia, war with Ukraine. And Zelensky, who is there as a dictator, by the way, of course, want to keep the war going so that he will stay in power. Because usually in a war, of course, there are no elections. So that's dictator behavior. So, which is why I believe that Russia and, of course, NATO, I don't even know why the significance of NATO. I mean, the Cold War is over. There's no more Soviet Union. So it seems like that NATO is the troublemaker here. So the United States should pull out of NATO because I don't see why that it is good for our country when it's actually not. And basically, Russia, of course, they have the most nuclear weapons, of course, which they will use at about any time that they're probably feel threatened. So, so which is why that NATO is a failed experiment. It should no longer be an organization. So, the United States should pull out of NATO. Just so for the safety, because Russia in the 90s, of course, after the Cold War, they said to not expand NATO 1 inch eastward to Eastern Europe. Now, the West, they want Ukraine to be part of NATO, which is literally on Russia's doorstep. So Russia sees that as a threat. I mean, I know that. So when the war in Ukraine began, of course, I began siding with Ukraine because I was told to hate Russia by the mainstream media. I was told to hate Russia. But no, I mean, I don't know why that I'm told to hate Russia and hate any other country, probably because of they're stuck in the 1980s. They're stuck in this 80s mentality that the Soviet Union is there. I mean, there's some bad things about Russia and definitely bad things about Ukraine. There'd be bad things about pretty much any country. But don't need a globalist organization to dictate and to collude with the military-industrial complex to justify a war with that country. I mean, that is inhumane, and it is stupid. So instead of throwing bombs at something, throw an olive branch. I mean, try to find a way of peace, but otherwise leave the area alone. So anyways, and if you mess with us, we know where to find you. So anyways, okay, so I learned a lot about the libertarian cause. So what do you see in the future of the Libertarian Party? What do you see in the future?
Well, I see a future of the Libertarian Party where it actually can compete, where it can compete with the two-party system. Right now, we're healing after a sad moment in our party where we sold out to the MAGA Republicans with Angela McArdle, our former chair of the party. We recently got new leadership in the national committee, which is I met the vice chair at LibertyCon. I admire him completely. He appears to be fighting for what libertarians believe in, and he also appears to be fighting for the party to make sure we can actually be electable in office. Our role as a party is to compete the two-party system, and I see us getting to that point in our future. Especially, we're trying to get the youth involved. They got me involved. I know I can get other people involved in our party. As a member of the party, my goal is to influence our generation to join the libertarian cause. Because here's the thing. Not many people know they're libertarian, and they are libertarian. They're secretly libertarian. If you were to take a political compass test right now, I assure you, you'd probably be on the right libertarian side of the compass. Mostly, and it's like let's say, for example, this guy named Joe here. I mean, some random guy named Joe, right? He loves guns. Just like I love guns. He also believes the Second Amendment is as is, and he also believes that all these gun laws are unconstitutional. Well, guess what, Joe? That is literally libertarian. We believe that gun laws are unconstitutional. If you want to own a machine gun, I don't see what the problem is. As long as you're not there to commit force with the machine gun or hurt innocent people, I don't see what the big problem is. So, yes, there are tons of issues that people believe in that are libertarian, yet they still choose to vote for people who do not represent what they believe in. So our job as libertarians is to educate and show that there are viable options out there that can actually represent their core values, which are libertarian. And they're libertarians, as again, they don't know it. That's how I was. I was libertarian. I didn't even know I was libertarian until I found out. I had to be. I had to be. I had to be like they threw it at me like, oh crap, I'm a libertarian. Oh my gosh, jump ship from the Republicans. New party. That's our goal as a party. However, the thing is about the LP, Libertarian Party, we are focused on electing libertarians. I think our problem as a party is that we're doing more of that we're trying to influence people to join the party. That's our problem. We need to show that we are the party of principle, but we're having a hard time at doing that because we're not focused on that no more, it appears. However, our new leadership, of course, I believe, is on a course to actually do that as a party, to show to the American people that we are a viable option other than the two-party system, and to show that we actually have ideas. Because we've already tried statism, we already tried socialism, and look where it has brought us at. We are at the knees. We're being kneed on by China and all these other countries. We are not the America we were when we were founded. We have become more socialist. We have become more authoritarian. We were founded off of libertarian ideas. So we have gone further. We have gone further away from libertarianism, and I see a future when we actually head towards libertarianism, where we can actually have a balanced budget, where we can actually compete in a free market that's not government regulated to the tit. Sorry for my language, but I think that's pretty fair for how the government treats us. So, as again, I see a bright future for the party. I see our youth, Gen Z, getting really involved. I see a lot of millennials getting involved too, and I think it's about time the party shifts its focus towards the youth, and I believe that's a good thing. And me and a lot of other libertarians are doing so right now. We're fighting for that. And yeah, I see us winning something. Probably something not like the Senate or something, but like I see us winning state Senate seats or state House seats in state governments. That's our focus. We have won municipal elections in counties and cities. We are viable, and I see us winning more than just in the city and the county. So yeah, bright future for our party.
Okay, so now that I learned a lot about the libertarian cause, since I'm still new to politics, of course, I've been interested in politics for about 4 years, so I still consider myself as new to this. I'm still new to the Republican Party. Now I learned a lot about the libertarian cause. So I will take another political compass to quiz after I get done. I might do it right after I get done with this interview. So to find out where I am. So I believe that is it for this interview. Samuel, thank you very much for being part of this interview. Hope to interview with you again soon.
Oh, I hope so, and I really appreciate your time.
All right.